I'm Chosen Architect, and this is my modded adventure. I have one word for you. Create. Yes. Why create, you must ask? Well, there's actually a couple of things that I want to automate using create today, and that is going to be as listed right here. I want to automate glass, nether quartz, gold nuggets, gravel, andesite, and iron nuggets. All of those things should be accomplishable today, and we should be able to also incorporate Ars Nouveau in the process of create. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it is doable. But before we can do any of this, we need to go on a journey. That's right, a journey hunting for starbuncles. Now, this journey should be a lot easier now that we sort of have a pseudo elytra that we got last episode. And this is going to be used to take off. We launch, and then we get an elytra flight for about a minute. And then we can augment that. We can just go ahead and use our other abilities to grant us the ability to fly around. So what exactly am I looking for again? That's right, starbuncles. And I actually should be able to see them on the mini map here, or on the map. So they have a very interesting looking face. And so they look like two large eyes on the mini map. And hopefully we can stumble upon a few, because I want to use this as my power source for create. Now, right here is a starbuncle, and this little icon right here is what I'm looking for. Like I said, they look like just two little eyes. There's also a frog over here. Ooh, that's nice, because this is a swamp biome. So all I've got to do is drop down a bit of gold for these things to turn into some starbuncle shards. Probably also should turn off my magnet. Come on. Get your, hey, a frog. Look at that. Get your shard. There we go. I'm going to need several of these. Now, you may be wondering, Chosen, like, actually, how are you planning on incorporating this tower, Ars Nouveau, into the create mod, which is very industrial? Well, that's where these starbuncles are going to come into play. All I simply need is a little bit of gold, and I get to convert these into starbuncle shards, or stars. Charms? Whatever these are. Yeah, charms. And these charms, of course, are the things that, as you see right here, they basically spawn in a starbuncle. But we can take these and craft them with a create water wheel. And I tell you what, this has got to be one of the coolest add-on mods for create. Now, thankfully, within our quest book, we actually get some rewards for making some of this stuff. So I will need some like base andesite, which of course I have. That's how we're going to get into this mod, by making these alloys, andesite alloys. And then we take those and we turn them into shafts. And then we just simply combine a shaft with some wood, as you can see right here, and this gets us a water wheel. Of course, along with this wood, we can make large cogwheels, and we can also make small cogwheels. And then there's still one more thing that's going to be needed. But with the water wheel, we can simply combine this with a starbuncle charm, and we get ourselves a starbuncle wheel. Now, there are still a few other things that, of course, I want to do besides that, and that is to go ahead and turn all of these into strip logs, and then simply apply some of this andesite alloy. We're going to need a lot of these casings, and I hope to eventually automate the production of these. That's going to make it very nice. Also, the stripping of logs would be very easy to automate as well. But with all of that, I should now have all of the things needed for my quests. So if we look at the press, that is the last thing I'm going to need. And I should have a chapter complete for create inside of our quest book. So underneath the tech, we have the create. Basically, once you've made all of these basic items, I've given you enough resources in order to fully automate the press. And so that is one of the first things that you really need getting started with the create mod. So let's set all of these items up. You also get the wrench, which is very, very handy. So first things first is we are going to need some shafts. Now 2 should do the trick, and we can place one here and one here. That's pretty straightforward. And then of course we connect a belt line going like so, and now we have a belt. The cool thing is once we have this, all we need is some inventories And we can do something cool like this by placing a shaft here and a shaft here. And then I can actually encase those shafts like so, giving us some nice looking supports, and it doesn't consume our andesite casing. Now, to make this really efficient, we're probably also going to need 2 gearboxes, and these can be converted into 2 different types of gearboxes. We have a normal gearbox, as you see here, and then we also have a gearbox that is a vertical version. And what we're going to do is place a vertical gearbox on the back, connect that with a shaft, and then I'm going to place my press. So the press is then going to go right here. And as you see, this is connected so that way we need to transfer power. And to do that, I'm going to just use another vertical gearbox to send power to this. That's pretty straightforward, right? The other part is going to be to include a shaft right in the middle. Now, there's nothing really powering this, so it's not going to work. And that's where the Create add-on comes into play. We're going to put this little starbuncle wheel to work by simply clicking it on here. Notice it's going to start spinning, giving this rotational power. And it works out really, really well. Now, I can't exactly see just yet how much stress this is producing, but I do know that we could also put a gold block in front of it, and it will start spinning faster, and I also believe it produces more stress, which is going to be very useful, considering this all uses stress. Now, how do we automate the items going onto the belt and being pulled off the belt? Well, that's where we're going to use funnels. Now, I personally love using barrels as I think it really fits the aesthetic of the Create mod. But of course, any inventory works in this situation. And then all we have to do is just simply place a funnel here and here, and it automatically knows that it's on a belt line. Now, to make this look even cleaner, you can add some casings to this and it doesn't use it. But pretty much we're ready to go. And one of the first things we should definitely put in here is going to be the thing that allows us to make the Create goggles. These things right here allow us to see stress. And as you can see, we need a gold sheet. So if we place gold here, it's going to get pressed. There we go, bonk. And then it's going to move down the line, basically creating ourselves an assembly line. That's pretty cool. Now, of course, without these goggles, you're kind of left a little bit clueless. But with the goggles going inside of the head slot, we now should be able to see information, such as how much stress this is actually producing, which is 384 stress units. Now, without this, it produces 256. So, with that knowledge, we can see that this is producing enough stress to provide all of this. This is only using 192 stress, and these belts don't actually use any stress at all. So the only thing consuming that stress is this. Now, we could have gear ratioed up from this, and that's a whole other mechanic that is a part of this, but you can definitely do that. And to gear ratio, all you have to do is think of it this way. If you place a large cog on here, you can see that expends that rotational energy. And whenever we place a small cog on the outside, notice it's now spinning faster than the initial gearing. Now, a lot of the things for the Create mod is going to use iron and iron sheets specifically, such as fans and many of the other things that we're going to use to automate these resources today. And so I might as well get this started. So I've been thinking intently, like a lot, on how I'm going to actually go about doing all of the things that I wanted to get done. And it's going to require a lot of logistics in order to do this. A lot of going, gravel needs to go here, and then splitting and so on and so forth into different ways. Now, also, to be able to get glass and to be able to get soul sand for the quartz, we need to produce sand. And, well, Create doesn't really make that super easy to do. So, as you can see over here, if we look at how we actually go about getting sand, it's not as easy as you might think. You can't just mill gravel into sand. You would need a crushing wheel. And I'm not going to go today into getting the crushing wheel, as it requires a lot of steps into getting brass. I want to do this without using brass at all, if I can get away with it. However, to crush things, I think what I want to do instead is use, well, I want to use Ars. Yeah, there's actually a way we can crush with Ars. And for this, we're going to need the glyph of crush. And we're also going to need some spell turrets. Now, the crafting of spell turrets is quite simple. However, this does get a little bit more advanced when you start looking at the different types. Now, there is an enchanted spell turret. And what we can do is we could craft this one and it'll actually use less source in order to operate the spells that we're going to inscribe onto it. So we're just going to need some blaze rods, and thankfully we got a hold of those last episode. And so we can just put this together. And this also required, right, a source block. So let's get this bad boy enchanted. And just like that, bloop, we have ourselves an enchanted spell turret. Now you may be wondering, how do we apply a spell onto this to get this to work? Well, we're going to need to use a parchment for that. And then we go back into our spell book, and we're going to go ahead and change a few things. And all we want to do is we want this to break. Now we should, by default, it should automatically have a touch that it applies. I don't know if we need touch. We'll test it out. But we'll have it say touch because I think it can do touch or projectile. We're going to set this one just basic touch and then crush. And then we're going to have it pick the item up. Now you can have place block and pick item pickup, and it's going to pull or send from the inventory that's connected to it. So in this case, it's going to pick up the crushed item. Now I almost forgot. We have to, before this, put one more thing, right? Because we need this to crush, then break the item. We need to take it from gravel, then break to sand. And then once we break the sand, then we will have that item picked up. So that way we pick up the sand that it had just broken. So with that applied, we can just shift right click. And now we have inscribed a spell onto the parchment. So let's put all of this into practice. I'm going to make myself a cobble gin. This is how we're going to be able to get the cobble here. And I went this route in this pack by adding this just because the way of getting cobble normally using create can be quite a messy endeavor and very, very messy on servers. So let's go ahead and use this method. Now, I added a little platform here. I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit later. But for right now, we basically need to take the cobble and then send the cobble into a mill right here. So we're going to need to get one of these made. So I'm going to go ahead and place my cobble gin and then a millstone right here. And the cobble gin should hopefully automatically fill the millstone with cobblestone. So that is pretty nice. Now we do need to get this spinning. And then I'm going to use a modular router. And I want the modular router to pull gravel. Now, I don't know if by default, if it'll automatically pull both. Let's go ahead and put this in. Is this going to pull gravel, or is it going to pull the cobble out of here? No. So it seems like this works already as like a filter. So this is going to pull, once it has some gravel to pull, it's going to pull it into here. And I'm going to use this modular router as a simple way to evenly distribute all of our individual pieces. So I think I've sort of simplified the idea that I kind of want to do with this. What I want to do is I want to use a distribution module to send this into my base. So some of the main things that I'm of course going to want are going to go into these framed drawers. So for example, right here, I can have a framed drawer that it can have gravel in it. And then over here, I can have a framed drawer that has, for example, sand in it. And these are going to be the two that have actual sand and gravel that stay consistent, that I can use to make concrete and many other things. So I need that to definitely send to this in both of those ways. But I'm also going to need a drawer that is going to basically take on gravel to just be turned into sand. So that means I need, like I said, to use that distribution module, which is great because it'll round robin, meaning that it'll send to one container and then the next item it receives, it'll send it to the other, basically evenly splitting the product. So the idea is to eventually have those products in our base. So for example, glass can also go there. And then we also need one for quartz and gold nuggets, because those are also going to be products that will be produced over time. So let's go ahead and, I don't know, set one here for quartz and maybe one right here for gold nuggets. So with me basically excluding for right now andesite and iron from the total production that we're going to be reducing today, because I think we can get this from another iron farm, I think we just need basically to send the gravel into two locations. So let's go ahead and do that. Using the distribution module, I can go ahead and basically set up a new system. So let's just right here, we'll send gravel to this one. And then we're going to send gravel to this one. So now this should evenly round robin, as you see right here. And once we put this distribution in here, we should be able to get that up and running. This is going to go into the main setup, by the way. So this should go here, and any gravel that this produces will be pulled into here and then sent into this drawer and sent into the other one. Now, what I want to do with this drawer is I want to turn all of this gravel that is going to be produced here into sand. Now, instead of it going into a drawer up here, I actually want it going into a modular router because remember, we're going to be converting this into sand. And so to do this, what I also want to make sure happens is it goes in and gets placed. So we want to place that sand down here. Now, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind when you're placing items into your world using modular routers or even breaking. You gotta keep in mind that if you have your area protected, maybe you're on a server or you have the base loaded, you're going to want to go into the little purple settings button and make sure you have allow fake players enabled. Either that, or you can put a security upgrade card in here from modular routers that will also allow it to hopefully work. So what should happen is we should be able to place, for example, cobble in here, and it places, as you can see, just like that. So instead of course, cobble, it's going to be gravel instead. Now, this is where the spell turret is going to come into play. I want to place down the spell turret, and notice it is facing right here, meaning that it should break the block that is right in front of it, so long as we've used the spell parchment onto this. As you can see, it now is set to touch, crush, break, and then item pickup. And then the cool thing is that item pickup should be able to be sent to another modular router, simply by placing one right beside it. So to get source to that bad boy, let's go ahead and make ourselves an upgraded source relay. So what this should allow us to do is to receive source from multiple locations and or send source to multiple locations. Pretty darn cool. And this can be connected, of course, throughout your network. But what I'm going to use it as is basically a way to pull from all of those source jars that we've been farming this whole time. So now that we have this, I'm just going to basically place it above this. So instead of this source relay, what I'm going to do is instead use this source relay. The source splitter. I've already used the wrong one. So the source splitter. And then we just basically need to link all of the jars to it. And it's going to take from all of these sources. Now, of course, to attach this to another jar, I think I should be able to just right click this to set its position. And then we just go outside and I should be able to equip this to another source relay. And then that can be connected to a jar. So a source relay, and then of course a jar, which is this will pull from, and we connect that to that relay, and then this to the jar, and that should start to fill up. Now, how does this work exactly? Well, you actually need to give this one a redstone signal. Now, there is another version that's not the enchanted that uses a clock, and you can adjust the timing, but in this case, yes, we need to adjust the timing, and we need to make it a little bit slower than this. So yeah, let's go ahead and extend this out 200 ticks. Keep in mind that this number right here is in reference to ticks, and 20 ticks equals a second. Now, of course, we don't want this running just yet, so I'm going to pause while redstone is activated. That way we don't waste any of our source because we don't have this running just yet. Now, I think here is where things might get a little bit confusing. So I have 3 fans that are set up. And what is going to end up needing to happen is I'm going to send these into a depot, basically send the ingredients into the depot. For our sand, we are going to have one that gets turned into glass, which will be sent to this depot. That should be able to be produced. Then we have this depot, which basically is going to produce the soul sand. And then that soul sand needs to be sent to this depot to be washed. And then ultimately, I need to pull the results out of all of the depots and send them into their respectable location. And hopefully we can do that from one modular router. So now let's go ahead and do this. Let's get our sand sent to multiple locations, one being this depot and this depot. Now that the sand is going into this depot and this depot, I've come to the realization that it's actually going to be a little bit harder to do this than I thought, and it's going to require more modular routers. So I'm going to need a modular router here and here to basically transfer the item from here into this, because you only have a single slot, which means that we'll end up with items buffering in here, such as soul sand. So what I'll do instead is this middle section is basically going to distribute and pull out of this, pull out all of the items from the router. So we'll put this into transfer into mode. And what I'm gonna do is click this, and this one. Now, this is important because actually I don't need the soul sand. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and remove the soul sand from here. But I do need the products from these two, which are gonna go into this. And then that is going to get transferred into some drawers. So the thing that we're producing here is going to be this, which is a glass, which I've already got all the ingredients put in here. So we're going to be sending glass to this, and then we're going to be producing nether quartz and gold from this. So if I put these two in that router, that should basically keep all of the items pulled out. Now we still need to transfer the items over and produce soul sand into quartz. So let's go ahead and put these in because these are basically done. Now I need to pull, but I need to pull only something very specific. Oh, also on the pull here, it's pulling out of the depots. We also probably want to set a whitelist and make sure we're only pulling glass, nether quartz, and gold. Otherwise, we're going to have other issues as well. Now transferring here, as you can see, it already tried to pull sand out. The thing that we want to move out of this is going to be a pull module that's going to pull from the bottom. And we are basically going to say only pull out soul sand from this setup. So only pull out soul sand and pull it from the down. So that should pull no problem there. And then we just need a Cinder MK2 and we'll link that over here. And that Cinder MK2 needs to go in here. It's going to send soul sand. This should be set to whitelist mode. Going to only send soul sand over here once it's producing. And then we need to use a Cinder module to send down. And we are going to specifically send soul sand. This doesn't matter. We'll set this to a blacklist. And then that should basically send the soul sand into this. And then everything else will kind of filter around. And that's pretty much automated. You know what I say to that? Welcome to modded Minecraft. Now, of course, the final step to all of this, and that is getting it spun up. So I'm going to place the starbuncle wheel here, and that is now blowing to that. Place that there, and that there. Now they should all be blowing in the respected way. That's perfect. And then we also need to get our crusher turned on. And as soon as we have that turned on, oh boy, this is going to go crazy. Now, of course, for this, let's go ahead and get some gear ratio happening. Basically, you can hook up a cog here, and this makes this so much easier. I wanted this feature for so long, and that's the ability to put gears on top of gears without interacting with the gear. It sounds more complicated than it is, but yeah, basically, this is how it functions. So I'm going to place myself a gearbox, and because we've gear ratioed up twice, it should be relatively quick. And even with one is able to keep up with it. So this basically should be producing gravel. I might want to take this up a little bit more and potentially add 2 more of these. So with this all running, moment of truth, does our spell work? That is the question. And will it work? Let's go ahead and set this to 20 for now. That'd be every second. That's probably too fast. Let's do 40 and turn it off. And we'll see, will the spell function? I think it still has to run through that 200 cycle first, but there it goes. Okay. And that's producing sand. Oh, that's so cool. And then we should start to see those things go into the inventories here. And there's already glass. And then the next thing, which is a lot slower at producing, will eventually be the quartz. But all of this should be working. The only thing that's going to be our limiting factor in this setup is inevitably going to be how we're generating source and being able to maintain enough, which is going to be a problem that we're going to have to solve in the next episode. Because today we're out of time. Now, of course, I can't leave you hanging though with it being like this. I do have to clean this up quite a bit. It shouldn't be too hard, actually. And just like that, with a little bit of finessing, it more or less looks like it's an add-on. As if a tree had kind of been growing here. And yeah, it's covered up. even though it is kind of a mess of automation. Now, with all of that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Of course, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and also join the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect, and join the amazing crew today. Also, don't forget, click that like button as well. Now, of course, I do also want to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is going to be a huge thanks going out to Dark Nemesis over on the Discord, becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. Guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Comment down below how you would have done this better. I'd always love to read you guys' comments. And of course, I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.